Salutations. Welcome to Strategy and Analysis Centre. Today's briefing, China's air dominance capabilities. Update. The bottom line is China's Air Force has made huge strides over the past 10 years. How do these developments link to each other and what's next? Much is written about the rapid advances of the Chinese Navy, the PLAN, over the past 10 years or so, and I see my related briefings there, which will be linked in the description. But the Chinese Air Force's air warfare capabilities have also been enhanced significantly. This briefing was suggested by a subscriber, Politics, Military and Economics, and I've linked his YouTube channel in the description, and I'd suggest you take a look at it. Now, I'm not going to cover everything that he suggested. This briefing will look at China's Air Force's airborne assets for air dominance. That's airborne platforms in an air-to-air role. And we'll look at 3 fighters, 3 air-to-air missiles, 3 airborne early warning and control aircraft, and 3 Force Multiplier aircraft. So firstly, 3 upgraded fighters. We'll start with the J-20. Now, J-20 has been around for about 10 years, but it is a true stealth aircraft and assessed to possess excellent range payload performance in stealth configuration. So no external weapons, and due to its large internal fuel load. Now has indigenous engines, and importantly, there is a 2-seater version. This will improve battle management and cooperation with UCAVs, or the loyal wingman concept. And significantly to date, this is the only stealth fighter that comes in a 2-seater version. Secondly, we have the J-16. That's inspired by the Su-30s that have been in service with the Chinese Air Force for around 20 years. They offer that range payload that you get with the flankers and derivatives, that excellent range payload performance. Importantly, 2 crew, as we've just mentioned with the J-20S potentially. Weapons variety due to the number and location and capacity of its hardpoints, and again, indigenous engines. And thirdly, we have the J-10C. This is the latest version of an aircraft that's been around for approximately 20 years. Significantly cheaper than the J-20 or the J-16, but yet still has the latest weapons and sensor technology that's available to China. As you can see in this photo here, in this image here, you have the J-10C with a pair of PL-10s and PL-15s, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So all 3 of these aircraft are in production, currently in production, all with domestic engines, and all with active electronically scanned arrays. So just then I mentioned about the PL-10s and 15s on the J-10C. Here, so we're going to talk about, we've got great platforms in those 3 fighters, platforms and sensors, but what about their weapons? So we're going to look at 3 air-to-air missiles that are available for all 3 aircraft. And we'll start with the PL-10, which is the one you can see on the air intake side weapons bays. Been around for 7 or so years. Short range or within visual range missile. Features off-bore side angle and thrust vectoring capabilities. It's very manoeuvrable. It preps out to about a 20k range, which is not really critical in this discussion, but very manoeuvrable and hasn't been around for very long, so it's some of the latest technology China has. Also in this photo, you'll see the PL-15s. Now they're the 4 in the central or the main weapons bay of the J-20 here. Again, roughly about the same time, brought into service, at least 5 years. Long range, greater than 200 kilometres. Said to have a dual thrust motor. So the equivalent of the latest US AMRAAMs. Now there is talk, quite a deal of talk about a modification of the PL-15s, so 6 can fit in the weapons, the central weapons bay of the J-20. Here you can see it has 4. This makes perfect sense, entirely logical, but we haven't seen any images yet, so until we've seen it, it hasn't happened. But perfectly logical and to be expected that the PL-15 would be modified to be able to fit 6 in the internal bay, the main bay of the J20. And it's about 4 metres long and about twice the weight of the PL10. And thirdly, we have the PL21, or whatever it may be called. We'll go with PL21 at the moment. Very recent addition to the PLA Air Force. Very long range, greater than 300 kilometres. Suggests that it's powered by a ramjet, which makes sense. But if we look at the length of the missile, this is a 5 to 6 metre long weapon. So it's not going to be able to be carried internally on the J20. Certainly nothing stopping it from being carried externally, but to maintain its stealth performance at this stage, it doesn't look like the J20 would be armed with the PL21 in most scenarios, although there's nothing to say it couldn't be. So given the size of this weapon, I'm mainly going to see it on the J16 of the 3 aircraft we've talked about today. Well, so a key component of the air warfare domain, of course, is airborne early warning and control aircraft, AEW&C. We're going to start with the KJ200. It's been around for more than 10 years. More optimised for lower altitude and perhaps even more tactical applications. It's going to be cheaper than the other examples we're going to look at in the Chinese Air Force. And just as the J10C has an important role to play, though it's not in the class of the J20 and the J16, so does the KJ200. You can never have too many airborne early warning and control aircraft. Again, the one that's been around for even longer than the KJ200, the KJ2000, so been around for approximately 20 years. Obviously we have the system here mounted on an Aleutian 76, and the significance we get from the KJ600 is its speed, range, and the altitude that you get from a jet platform rather than a turboprop. Obviously this is a more expensive platform than the KJ200, but the larger airframe also provides more room for systems and operators. And we'll talk later about the potential for this system on the Y20. And thirdly, the KJ500. It's the more recent of these 3 examples, and it fits in the middle ground, more capable than the KJ200, certainly cheaper than the KJ2000, and as a more recent one, has the more recent technology. And finally, 3 force multipliers. So here we have the J16D. It's your fast mover EW aircraft. Brings that great flanker shell that provides that excellent range payload. Again with the 2 crews, which is critical for EW tactical aircraft. And of course the benefits of commonality and standard with the standard J16s in logistics and pilot training. To complement the J16D with either the Y9JB or the GX8, there are different names for this, but it's the electronic warfare version of the turboprop. It has good range and endurance, and seen recently as part of the sorties in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait. So it complements each other with the J16D, your fast mover for strike missions, and your turboprop with great endurance for more strategic applications or longer endurance operations. And finally, in the force multipliers, the Y20U probably. Again, as we mentioned with the J16D, with the J16 standards, you'll have the benefits of commonality through logistics and crew training, or pilot training at least, between the standard Y20 transport and the Y20 tanker. I've seen some assessments that its fuel offload capability is similar to the IL-78, which is good, and if that's what it's able to do, you know, how many tons of fuel, at what range can it offload? That's the offload statistics. That would be very useful for China. In summary, it's only in the past few years that the Chinese Air Force, PLAAF, has reached what I'd call a critical mass of quality and quantity of advanced platforms, sensors, missiles and force multipliers to challenge Tier 1 air forces for control of the sky. If we, looking at the sum of the parts, if you like, China has a comprehensive range of fighter aircraft. You've got stealth aircraft, you've got a big 4.5 plus generation aircraft with 2 crew and good range payload performance in the J-16D. And you've got a single engine, cost-effective aircraft with the latest radar and long-range air-to-air missiles in the J-10C. Then on top of that, as we talked about the air-to-air missiles, you've got the full range of air-to-air missiles with the J-10s, the PL-10s, PL-15s, PL-21s. You have a wide variety of airborne early warning and control aircraft covering the full spectrum. And the force multipliers in the EW aircraft, both fast movers and turboprops and tankers, air refueling aircraft, that are the prerequisites for high-end warfighting. And importantly, all these aircraft have substantial experience exercising together. Note that I intentionally did not cover surface-to-air missiles or ground-based radars, nor strike aircraft that can contribute to the air warfare domain. The future? Well, it's highly likely that the Chinese Air Force will add the J-35 or whatever the land-based version of China's new naval stealth fighter will be, and Y-20 based airborne early warning and control aircraft in the coming years to enhance further China's air dominance capabilities. That concludes today's briefing. A future briefing will examine the PLAN Air Force, so the Chinese Navy's Air Force developments. Thank you for watching. Happy to take suggestions for future briefings from subscribers, as this is in response to the request from one subscriber. So please subscribe, like, and share. Until next time, Vale de Sere.